This episode of the AI XR podcast is brought to you by our friends at Zappar. If you're in the XR space, you've probably felt the pain of juggling different tools, vendors, and platforms just to get an AR or VR project off the ground. It's exhausting, and it can really slow you down. That's where Zappar comes in. They've built a complete suite of tools and creative services all under one roof to make creating immersive experiences not just possible, but practical. Their next gen 3D web tool, Mattercraft, is a game changer for building immersive experiences for headsets, smartphones, and AR, VR, and WebXR. It combines the power and flexibility of the 3JS rendering engine with a rich visual editor, making it super intuitive and easy for designers and developers to use. Put simply, you get the creative freedom of a powerful 3D engine with none of the headaches. So if you're ready to take your immersive projects to the next level, head over to Zappar.com and see what they can do for you. Welcome, everybody, to the live recording of this week's episode of the AI XR podcast. I'm Charlie Fink, here with Ted Schilowitz and some special guests, Nils Phil from Aukey Labs, Casper Thykier from Zappar, and Connell Holt, all of whom actually have been former guests. So the way we're going to do this, first of all, Zappar is our sponsor and has been for the past 3 years. The podcast would not be possible without them. It's generally a volunteer effort, but it does support the work of our associate producer, Lauren Descher, who is my former student and has a master's degree in VR. So anybody who is looking for a skilled VR developer should talk to Lauren. There's the free plug for Lauren. And of course, we're going to talk with Zappar for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to bring up some special guests, starting with the great Avi Bar-Zeev, who knows more about XR than Ted and I put together on a good day. So we'll have him, and then some special guests from the audience, including possibly some other former students of mine who actually have experiences here on the show floor. So exciting to have you guys, exciting to be at AWE again. For me, it's the 9th AWE. So I'm not quite the oldest of the old timers, but that was pretty good. By the time I showed up in 2016, AWE had already built up quite a bit of momentum.
Yeah, I would imagine I'm probably 15 years into this thing or something like that, because we did it a long time in Santa Clara,
yes.
The convention center up there.
Yes.
And then how many years in Long Beach now?
This is the
second year. Which is this is a good venue, and it's a good place to kind of escape to, right?
I'm definitely a fan of the move
to
Long Beach, I have to say.
Yeah, I missed the way that the layout of the Santa Clara Convention Center, because the bar was real close to the main hall. So anyway, well, let's start. Since we all know about Zappar, one of the kings of mobile AR, and also the Zap glasses. So they are a diversified AR company, and lately they've been working with Aukey Labs, and Aukey is building a spatial map of the entire world. You may have seen their robot walking around wearing a pair of augmented reality glasses, and the idea, I guess, is that the robot has some understanding of where it is. So now, Nils, you spoke this morning on the main stage, and I'm really sorry to have missed that. There was horrible traffic on the 710 coming in here. But now that you're here, tell me what I missed.
So Aukey works on collaborative machine perception, meaning we want to make sure that all robots, all glasses, the phones in your pocket have a shared understanding of the physical world. The reason we think that's important is, according to the World Bank, some 70% of the world economy is still tied to physical spaces and physical labor. That's out of reach from AI. AI can't help us with physical work today yet. So our goal is to make the physical world AI accessible. We like to jokingly ask, what is the equivalent of the wheelchair ramp, but for a robot? What needs to be in place for physical AI to be able to serve us? And my talk this morning was about what we call the great reversal which we believe is a pivotal moment in the history of language, of life, and the universe itself, which is that beings summoned out of language and art, AI, are coming into the physical world. We have summoned demons, you guys, and they're coming into the physical world, and the spatial computing community find themselves in the absolute epicenter of this, because it's the spatial computing community that is building the bridge for digital beings to join us in the physical world.
I love that, except for the demons part. So one of the videos that you have playing in your booth, and I find this really compelling, and actually you guys have been on the show talking about it, is showing your robot navigating a retail space, much like a person would, because it has spatial understanding of where it is and what is actually on the shelves. Maybe Casper, you can talk to that a little bit. What's going on there? What am I seeing?
Well, absolutely. And before I get to that, I'd actually say shout out to AWE, because we met Niels last year at AWE, and that idea of it being a place where everyone congregates to sort of share ideas and share technology, I think is what makes it so special. And really what came out of that meeting last year was this amazing combination of the technology that Alki have to create a spatial map of a retail space, built actually foundationally on QR codes that are on the floor, because heck, they're a great source of ground truth in order to have that accuracy that you need in that space. And that's something that we could help build upon with our accessible QR codes that meant they could scan better. Also make it so that we could provide this idea of an app clip.
You're making an assumption here that people know what an accessible QR code is. So let's rewind there.
Okay, so quickly on that one. So I think another really important point in our sort of step in humanity is how we make access to information a basic human right. And that means being more equitable in how we service people who are blind and with low vision. And we shouldn't live in a world anymore where access to product information on packaging is not accessible to that community. So what we developed with Conal and his team is this idea of an accessible QR code. So just some dots and dashes that sit around the corner of it that allow us to be able to scan a QR code from much greater distances and be able to use the device's accessible features to use text-to-speech and things. So the nice thing about QR codes then is they really scan very well and very quickly in a camera view, and that's where it's great when it's sort of plugged into Alki's system. That's then something that we can deliver in an appless way through this idea of app clips. So very lightweight, very easy for anyone to use. And indeed, you're right. We've done the entire show floor with those codes as well, so you can navigate through this whole thing. And I guess that shows just how scalable and how quickly it can be built.
For sort of the general listeners out there, the idea of an app clip is so compelling because that last friction point of, oh man, now I have to download an app to use this facility, to use this piece of productivity, was always a last step to the success point of a lot of apps that like should get much more traction, but never do. And now you just hold your camera up and it does kind of what you'd expect from sort of a web experience, except it's actually loading a little applet that then can live on your phone if you choose to say, I want this always to be on. There's always an option that says allow once or allow always, and then it can sort of live there, but it's almost frictionless, right? So that's the value.
Correct. And it also allows us to then use fantastic technologies like ARKit and ARCore, so we get really good sort of tracking, etc. And so from that point, then we also have our content authoring platform called Mattercraft that means that we can then really deliver compelling content within that. So what that means, I guess, coming back to the robot point, is we now, in a retail environment, have just this sort of incredible start point for making so many productivity gains for absolutely everyone involved in retail, whether that's operationally for the store itself, how we help them with task management, how with stockouts, all these other great things. Then from the consumer side, how we can help blind and low vision people navigate to products in aisle, which is absolutely game changing and a bit of a holy grail piece of that community. And then we can help anyone, so robots or sighted people have spatial awareness within that space. And I think that's what's so fascinating. Back to Niels's point, is we are now bringing robots into our world as opposed to us disappearing into a digital world, and that's exciting.
So is there a long-term vision where if you have some disability or just the desire not to go to the physical store to go grocery shopping, you can send your avatar out to go grocery shopping? Is that part of what you're sort of envisioning and working on? Because I can give you a utopian and a dystopian version of that, obviously.
Yeah, we definitely believe that the robots are coming. So I live in Hong Kong, where the robots have already come. Real quick, the US robotic fleet, or the Chinese robotic fleet caught up to the US robotic fleet in 2015. Since 2023, more than half of all robots sold on any given year are sold to China, and more than half of all robots on the planet are on Chinese soil today. So robots are a lot more mainstream in my neck of the woods, and we do a lot of thinking about how do we give them more meaningful jobs for robots, not just meet and greet robots, but let them handle products, etc. We believe that there are 6 layers of software that need to be in place for robots to be able to do stuff on our behalf. To answer your question, we absolutely believe that you should be able to send your humanoid robot to the grocery store. But what we see is missing for this to happen. What are the 6 things that need to happen? Robots need to have models for locomotion, which is most of what you've seen robot companies demo. We've seen the Optimus not fall over. That's a model for locomotion. They need models for manipulation, being able to grab things, pour a cup of water, etc. But even if you had those 2 things in place, you still couldn't ask a robot to go empty all the trash cans here at the expo. You also need spatial semantic perception. You need mapping, and you need positioning, and finally an app layer to tie all of this together. And what we believe that is separate from what maybe Niantic believes is that that's not going to happen with one big VPS of the whole world, because a lot of this data is very, very sensitive to people like retailers. Walmart does not want to give Niantic a copy of what the store looks like, and they don't have to give that to us either. So our vision of the future is one where your humanoid robot connects to your micro VPS when you're at home, and to Walmart's micro VPS when it's at Walmart.
Right, so it's your own little multiple private clouds feeding that data, protecting that data, which is kind of outrageous. If you want the dystopian current sort of media model of this, watch a movie that the Russo brothers did called Electric State. You seen it?
There are a lot of things that could go wrong.
Yes, it's worth a watch.
So before we kick you guys off the stage and get to Avi, Connell, you showed me this epic demo of an AR integration into Mattercraft that you could place into the physical world as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that? That seemed quite innovative to me.
Absolutely. So one of the pieces of the puzzle that we at Zapper bring to the world here is a set of creative tooling for spatial and for XR in general. It's really interesting the analogy you made to the web for applets. At Zapper, we fundamentally believe that the web, I suppose it's the original decentralized network, right? It's the original mechanism by which we were able to have different computers responding to different requests and not having this single centralized source. And for us at Zapper, that makes the web the ultimate application platform. It's the best way to give software to users because it is decentralized, and there's also fantastic ecosystems around the web. And so when we're, for example, working with Aoki to deploy this Atlas technology here at the Expo Hall, or in general, we are actually providing that through the web. So it's a web technology that we then accelerate through the use of the applet. And so one of the things we do at Zapper is just make next generation creative tooling for the web. So how can we get the types of developer experience you see with things like Unity or Unreal, and bring them to what is the front-end web development ecosystem, which has been a mainstay of coding and non-visual design, if you like. And so Mattercraft is our development environment for the web. The Go-To application here that enables navigation in this space was built by the Aoki team in Mattercraft. And we've just deployed a fully integrated AI assistant into Mattergraph. And that AI assistant allows you to, we're calling it vibe crafting. So it's vibe coding, but visual. So with AI assistant in Mattergraph, you can go in, you can describe and have a conversation with the AI assistant. The AI assistant will build and code what you're asking for it in real time as you watch, and then with a push of the button, you can deploy that into a space like we have here. So it's taking tools that we've seen in the developer community like Cursor and Windsurf, these fantastic AI developer tools, and they're bringing it to the visual and spatial world. So that's what we're doing with Mattergraph AI.
That is a fantastic segue, because we're going to bring Avi up and we're going to talk about what AI is doing for XR. So thank you guys for coming up this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nils. Thanks. All right, Avi, come on up here.
Thanks, Colin.
By the way, Vicky Lynn, our terrific track chair. Vicky, give me a heads up when we've got 10 minutes left, just so I know where we are in the show.
I think we're sharing a mic.
Yeah, no.
No,
Did
there's
somebody
another
take the
mic.
away?
It's coming back.
The mic is flying back in.
They're coming back.
Thank you very much, Con. All right, Avi, great to see you.
You too.
It's, this is like old friends week for us.
Very much so. Very much so.
AWE is always like that for me. It's like
Yeah.
the dinners, meeting people. That's.
Have you been at every single AWE?
Almost.
So I see you wearing your XR Guild hat,
Yes.
and in fact, at AWE this year, you are wearing an XR Guild hat. You posted an event last night.
Yeah.
You guys have things going on all week. So tell us a little bit about the XR Guild.
Yeah, we had a great dinner in Mixer last night. Thank you for the folks that came. XR Guild is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the idea of making XR more ethical. And ethics is a complicated subject, and we take a whole bunch of time on it. But basically, it's do the most good and the least harm. Right? It doesn't have to be about religion, morality, anything else. Just do the most good and the least harm. The question is how. So we want to help. We've made a library on the web that's at library.xrguild.org that has tons of resources. If you ever have questions about how should I solve a problem, let's look at what people did before. And if you're not sure, let's look at what went wrong before and project that forward and see if maybe we can learn from that as well. So there's a library, there's a set of principles, and we have a mentoring program that we're starting. We want to help people. Unfortunately, sending your resume into the AI trash bin doesn't really work very well with most companies. So what you really want to do is know people. And this is the place to meet people and get to know them. And it used to be an old boys network. It should be open to everybody, but it's still a network. And so you still need to meet everybody. And they have to know you and trust you and want you to come in. That's what this is really about. Meet those people. They're very accessible. People in this field are very approachable. And it's one of the great things about it. That's why we do these dinners. Everybody just meets random people and they love it. So please do that. Last thing I'll say is if you could tell me what's our first principle. We have 7 now. We used to have 12. On either set of principles, the same answer. If you can tell me what is the first principle, I have a bag of swag that I will give away up to until I run out. So just come up later and tell me what it is.
Let's do a couple live.
Okay.
So you can give them away.
Let's do a couple live.
So anyone raise your hand and tell me what the first principle is? I see a few of you who probably know. Every person matters. Every person counts. So you're in. You want the same answer. You want to try a different principle then? And so you don't. What?
Network?
Network. You have to say more because it's related to a couple of principles. But we have. Does anybody know what we said recently about AI? We added a principle this year about AI since we're going to talk about this.
Tell us.
So we debate this. This is one of the benefits of membership is we debate these issues. And we have people who say AI is taking our jobs, AI is ruining creatorship by copying our work. And there's other people say it's the future, and I love the creativity. I want to be in a holodeck and be able to tell it what I want. How else are we going to build that without all this great content that companies are scraping for free right now without attribution? So what's the compromise? How do we deal with that? So we have a principle about this that says the companies that are taking the content need to respect the ecosystem. That's really important because if you run out of creators, you run out of content. It's in their interest to make sure that we have a content ecosystem. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to pay you right now, but they should at least be giving credit and respecting the people who say no, right? But they need to build an ecosystem that makes it so that more people will create, so that there's more content, or else AI is going to dry up as well. It's going to become stale.
Yeah, it's great that there are organizations like the XR Guild that not only do provide a networking platform, but also provide a shared set of values so that that network has more validity and you know something about the people in the network even before you meet them.
Yeah.
So let's move on to XR and AI, which is, of course, in great evidence here.
Yes.
Our third co-host is Ronnie Abovitz, the founder of Magic Leap. Ronnie is a guy who knows a lot about a lot. And in the home stretch, let's say the waning days of the old Magic Leap, he was pushing hard on AI because he knew that AI is what XR has been waiting for. Now, I'll give you my own take on this for a minute, and then I'll hand it to you. I believe that that is correct. But in a way, it is also leading me to lose my religion a little bit. Because with AI as a wearable, right, with sensors, with contextual awareness, connected to AI, has geolocation, so it knows where you are and what you're looking at, what's the display for? I've got a smartphone in my pocket that has a rocket display. If I want to do AR, I can pick it up at any time. In fact, maybe my AI is saying, hey, you should take a look at this using AR. So I wonder what the display is for. I think glasses are a fantastic platform for AI and for sensors and for a contextual understanding. But I've started to lose faith in this all day, every day wearable that replaces the smartphone. I kind of feel like the smartphone replaces the smartphone. Maybe it gets smaller, maybe it gets more wearable, but it's still a smartphone.
In your question, how does the AI talk back to you? That's sort of hinted at the answer.
I mean, it's an audio interface.
So audio is still AR. So
Yes, agreed, 100%.
So it doesn't have to be always visual, and you can
Right.
have some great audio experiences. And I think we'll find that there are times where you want the AI's voice inside your head, and there's other times where you want it outside of your body as an externalization. And that, as soon as, just audio by itself is not AR, but as soon as you spatialize the audio and want to place it in space, that's now a form of AR. Now the question is, why would you want visuals as well? I'll give you an example. You're walking in a bookstore, and the AI figures out there's a book you're going to like. Well, it could tap you on the shoulder and say, hey Charlie, there's a book over here, but you may be talking to somebody, something else may be going on. So why not just make that book glow on the shelf? Very subtle. It doesn't even need to be high resolution. It just glows to get your attention.
Okay, well, this is one of my fantasy applications, which is just a horrible invasion of privacy application that I really happen to personally like. Because we're at AWE, I know most of you, right? We're connected on LinkedIn, we message on different topics, but I'm not used to seeing you in the real. So without your name tag under you,
Yeah.
I can't give you proper respect or context. So wouldn't it be great if we could all turn on our LinkedIn when we walk in here and we know that we are discoverable by people to whom we are connected? That would be a killer application
I
for
think you
LinkedIn.
said a key thing too, because there are some people who think that you should automatically scan faces and get somebody's Facebook page automatically just by Face ID, and that would be an invasion of privacy
Yes.
because they didn't agree to that. But because you said who does it optionally and has permission, I would love, even in the audio world, to have an app. I call it the Gary app. If you watch the Veep show, the Gary app is the one who sits behind you and taps you on the shoulder, reminding you of someone's birthday.
It's a perfect analogy.
Right?
It is, yes.
He's just always there to tell you what you need to know
Yes.
about this person. But it's stuff you already know. It's stuff you learned and forgot, not stuff that it's not the search of the driver's license that
Totally.
gives you their criminal record. It's relevant stuff.
So there's a reason that you guys are having this very high level conversation about this stuff. And we have listeners all over the world. We have built a fairly significant listener base that enjoys the show, finds relevant to the show. And one of the things we always have to remember to do is to give that point of reference as to why you are talking about this at such an elevated state, which goes back, we are multi-generational characters now in this,
Yes,
in
that's
this
a good point.
way, right? So I think it's really important for our listeners, both here in the real at AWE and all over the planet that are listening to the show, to understand who you are and why you do what you do and how many steps it has taken in the various forms that we exist in our
I know
physical
that
body.
we really should have a subtitle to our show the AI XR podcast, always burying
Yeah.
the lead.
But certainly they can.
Jump into the middle of the conversation and
But certainly they can search for that, right? And they
Yeah.
can get that. They can get the Wikipedia version.
I'll give-
But
I'll
in
give you
your
one other-
voice,
yeah,
I think it's valuable.
let's
to
do
have.
it. Yeah.
The short answer is you have to do everything wrong to figure out what the right thing to do is. So you get a long history of trying things and failing and figuring out this sucks. But then you do something and it's magical. So specifically, what have I worked on? So I've been doing this for like 33 years now, and the first things we did were not great, but they got me the next job. So I got a job at Disney. Working on a VR ride called the Aladdin's Magic Carpet Ride in the 90s because of a demo that I did that we never sold. But it was a great demo, right? We never made money off it. But then I got the Disney job, and then I got to meet some great people from this company called SGI that made supercomputers, graphic supercomputers, and then worked closely with them. And years later, when they started a startup called Intrinsic Graphics, they pulled me in to come help them. And then we made this thing called Keyhole Earth Viewer, which is now known as Google Earth. So I helped build Google Earth, and I was the user interface and front end person, not just design, but also
you did that. Dave Lorenzini was,
Dave Lorenzini.
and
also
I'm
was
wearing
there.
Dave's shirt.
Yeah.
You like this shirt? The AR VR shirt made to look like an AC/DC
I
shirt.
like it, and it's much better than the one he was wearing yesterday.
Yeah.
It scares me. So I got to help start Google Earth, and
Just that little thing.
That little thing that had billions of, and that's probably the most successful thing, honestly, that I've worked on in terms of number of people using it. So I'm very proud of that. And it was all about, making the Earth fun. I worked on the way it rotates and the way you fly around and all that stuff. Make it fun to navigate and enjoy it. So got to go, and I met later, soon after that, Philip Rosedale. Got to work on Second Life, help them with some aspects of primitives in the world and how are those
So
constructed.
who's who of people who have been on this podcast?
Well, and now, and you're not done with your journey yet by far, but now it should start to make a little sense as to why you're so concerned about the ethical concerns around this form of technology, because you've seen it firsthand at every
Oh, yeah.
stage of the equation. I would love to ask the audience, and viewers around the world want to respond too, but just in here, who had a chance to ride that magical Aladdin Magic Carpet Ride experience? Look at that. So you still got fans. I did, Charlie did.
Old people.
Not just old people, but I had people walk up to me at every AWE and say that was the first thing I ever did
Yeah.
in VR,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it got me into the field.
was absolutely
And
my
I can't
first
take
thing.
credit for it. I was the junior guy on the team. I was the one that made it, made the show run smaller and faster and better. But John Snoddy and a bunch
Yeah,
of people
sure.
started it, and we're the ones who got the money to do that. Disney amazingly gave them $20 million to go do this thing. Like, great. Just basically buy a time machine to see what the future would be like, what you can do today on an Xbox.
And do you remember what each headset roughly cost to build and deploy back then? Now that we've got $300 headsets on the market?
Essentially infinite, but it was about $100,000 in labor and parts for each one, and it weighed enough that it had to be suspended from the ceiling on cables because it would hurt your neck.
It was a bowling ball on your head.
It was bowling ball,
So
and you could feel it when you,
Yeah, yeah.
when you moved around. Yeah, lots of really great stories from that. We could spend a whole hour on Disney. And we had Randy Pausch and all that stuff. Randy Pausch was the first person who taught me about UX testing. And he was really good at this. And we ran a whole bunch of UX tests on 100,000 guests running through the Epcot Center to get a lot of really good data. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him and from that process. So, moving on.
Yeah.
Second Life, skip ahead, had kids, wanted to go back and get another full-time job again. Started at Microsoft in 2008. I've been the only person who worked on both Google Earth and Second Life at that point, and they were trying to combine those two secretly at Microsoft, called it First Life. And I blogged, it was a terrible idea, and here's why it's terrible. And they hired me because everything that I mentioned were the problems they were secretly running into. So they come and fix it. So I helped them come and fix it. And in classic Microsoft style, we fixed it, and then they canceled the project. So I wish I had checked. But that was basically going to be the AR backend. That what we call the AR cloud, or the AR cloud server, that was what we morphed that hybrid into.
And it wasn't your only Microsoft project that had a moment and then went away.
Yes,
right?
well, there's this one you know about, and so I migrated around the company looking for great projects, and found the Xbox incubation group, the analog group, and they needed their next big thing after Kinect. They were just about to ship the Kinect, and I said, what about AR? And so we explored it, and it took a lot of convincing, and there's a lot of dogma around how to do it, not do it. But that's the group that built the HoloLens, and so I was there for the beginning of that. And lots of stories we can tell about that one. lots of stories we can't tell as well, and kept moving on and realized that a big bulky headset is probably not the right thing to do. It's not accessible to everybody. So when I went to Amazon soon after that, we, along with people, refugees from Google Glass, we started Echo Frames. And so we're like, let's make lightweight glasses that have audio and maybe if it's safe enough, cameras, but they didn't feel it safe enough. And so then we have the Echo Frames, but solve the style problem, solve the all-day wearable problem. And that, got me enough credibility that by the time I was ready to leave Amazon, I reached out to somebody, a friend, and said, what's going on at Apple? And he said, I can't tell you. Well, just tell me the right person. Get me connected with the right person. And I met Mike Rockwell and worked for Mike at Apple, and we started the Apple Vision Pro and things I can't talk about.
And they put Mike Rockwell in charge of Siri
And now he's in charge of Siri.
because, the Vision Pro was perfect. So why not take the guy who achieved that perfection
That's
and
not
have
nice.
him work on Siri?
I will defend Mike. I will say the things that work really well about the Apple Vision Pro, regardless of your criticism, is the machine learning, the AI,
Yeah.
not the high level Siri part, but the core tracking, right, hand tracking are flawless. And one of the most important projects is working on personas, and they're not perfect yet, but they're better than anybody else, and it's shipped. I mean, I think Facebook's codec avatars are good, but they don't ship. They don't run anything. So you need like an NVIDIA GPU or whatever. But the personas, if you haven't tried them, you got to get into a couple of headsets and have a conversation, because it's so important to be able to recreate the feeling of face-to-face, eye contact, knowing where people are pointing and looking is amazing, and that was a core tenet of the project.
So I'll ask you this, and I know you're going to be a little sensitive about the answer, and I will be very positive and respectful about it. But in the art and design and exploration, to your point about you get a lot of things wrong till you get it right, how much they got right, but missing the understanding of weight and ergonomics and comfort so fundamentally massively that it's a sort of massive disconnect on you have to make the thing wearable and usable. And Apple, as a usability company, maybe the most refined usability and user experience company on the planet, how does that happen? What can you talk about as to why there are so many great things about the Vision Pro, but such a gigantic blind spot as to how you're going to wear this thing for more than 12 minutes at a time?
I know the answer. What can I say?
What can you say? Give us some clues.
Let me give you a general answer that's not specifically about Apple. So when you create a temple of any sort, there are the high priests and the monks, and they're good at what they do. And then there's the acolytes, the people who support them. And those people can be trained in some way to tell them what they want to hear. They depend on people telling them the bad things that they don't want to know. They have to hear those things, but the people below them will often, for political
You get this sort of
reasons,
sycophant kind of moment. where-
will say, yes,
Yeah,
boss,
yes.
that's great.
Well, there's
And
actually a psychology around it. They're not saying things they don't believe.
yeah.
They're saying things that they wouldn't believe if not for the context.
And they want to keep their job.
Yeah,
So there's a
They want their boss to like them, so they agree.
It essentially comes down to a question that I mentioned Randy Pausch. I think whenever you do user testing, you got to have a completely impartial person doing it. I had a person on my team dedicated to user testing because I'm not impartial. I have the ideas I like.
Right.
So their job was to listen to everybody and tell me the things that might have pissed me off that I
Right.
needed to hear about why it wasn't working so that we could fix it and make it better. And so anybody doing any kind of project needs to have that person who is told, be mean, tell me the bad thing now before I ship it. And I feel like that in various places that is broken down. I feel it also with the HoloLens. I think is another example where the dogma of it has to be an all-in-one unit. I would have done it as a multi-piece unit, right? Rony made similar decisions to make it a multi-piece unit. I think that's smarter to do initially until you can shrink it down. I would have gone that direction. There's lots of things that magically, I'm on the board magically, by the way now. So there's lots of things
The now existing Magic Leap
Magic Leap business
still
fine.
exists.
Still exists, doing fine. I'll just say this.
They still exist, we just don't see them.
No, you
anymore.
will, because a startup cannot do everything. You can't create a startup that is meant to compete with a Microsoft or an Apple or Google. You have to focus on what you're good at, and they are focusing on what they're good at, and they will be in things, but you won't necessarily see their name in it.
So here's something interesting about, and we've all worked at big companies. You and Ted have worked at Apple. I worked at Disney and AOL when AOL was still the internet. That's how old I am.
It's still around.
I know, it's still around. It's Yahoo. It's part of Yahoo now. So there's an interesting business school case study. But the thing about a big company like Disney, I worked on Disney Quest for years on the business side.
Yeah, I worked on that too.
And Disney, well, yeah, we knew all the people who were working on it. And of course, our problem was economics, right? Your problem was technology. Our problem was the economics of LPE.
I told this to Joe D'Annunzio. The problem is you have to decide: are you going to be a bowling alley or a theme park?
Right.
You can't do both.
Exactly. So, and it was a complete whiff. I mean, we missed so many obvious things that we should have known. We were halfway into building Disney Quest Chicago before we realized we were losing money as quickly as we could, and not on construction, but on operations. So, there was an example of Disney making a complete whiff. ABC Go. What an embarrassing whiff for Disney. Yet, Disney is still the biggest and most successful entertainment company.
Microsoft had this thing called Ultimate TV.
Right, and that was my next example, right? Microsoft had the HoloLens, they completely muffed it. It cost them
They did
billions of
Vista as well
dollars.
before that.
Yes,
Remember
yes,
Vista?
and you know what? It doesn't matter. Because when you're Microsoft or when you're Disney, you get unlimited at-bats. And when you look at all the people on the floor out here, and even some of the bigger independents like Aoki and Zapper, they don't have unlimited at-bats. They have limited at-bats, right? They're little like the guy who came up from the minor leagues to replace somebody who's injured, and if they don't get a hit, it's back to the minor leagues. Whereas the player who was injured can come back and whiff for months, and he's still that player. So I think there really is a freedom that comes from working at these big companies. They have resources. They will follow through to completion, often even though they're wrong and they know they might be wrong.
Yeah, no. I need to make a decision sometime soon, Ralph. Do I want a full-time job or do I want to start a new startup, my own startup? I'd love to do my own startup, but you know how it goes.
Well,
And so maybe I should just go take a full-time job
Right,
somewhere.
because
do
you
it
get
as-
to build things instead of run around raising money,
Yeah,
which is, not building things.
exactly.
So I don't know how long we have, but I'm really grateful that we have so many people in the audience. And one of the terrible things about doing a podcast is that we never hear from you. We never see you. We never know who you are. I mean, one of the things that's really gratifying about coming to AWE, especially now that the podcast is kind of blown up, is that people come up to us, and they're like fans and they know the podcast. I also had this happen at South by Southwest. So, thank you. Thank you, for being with us on Friday mornings. And if somebody had told me when we started this 6 years ago, would you like to talk to Ted and Roni every Friday morning about whatever is happening, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm so gratified to see so many other people feel the same way. So anyway, let me put this microphone out in the audience for anybody who has a question or a topic or a comment about the podcast. We've got about 10 minutes left. Here, I'm going to give this mic to Vicky.
And as we do that, I'm going to start the questioning with Avi, just to kind of set the stage. So here we sit. We're going to do questions in a minute. This is the first question for Avi. Just an open question. Here we sit in the year 2025. It's an interesting marker in time, right? As you look upon this show floor, as you look upon the accomplishments that you've created, that many of your contemporaries have created, and you start to look at the future, and you start to look at the next, let's call it 10 to 15 years, do you think you start to see that kind of holy grail that everybody's working on? Do you think you see the right device in the right way, solving all of those missteps and mistakes and blind spots? Are we on the right trajectory or not? And do you think we're going to get there?
I think we are. After working on HoloLens, I imagine this as a two-path approach. So there's I call it the maximalist approach, which is like HoloLens or Apple Vision Pro. Put all the sensors you need, all the power you need. Think about Apple Vision Pro has the same power as like 3 iPad Pros, right? Really powerful. It's a computer. It's not a micro computer. And that's why it's big and expensive and all those things, right? So it has to do a lot. And then there's Echo Frames or the Ray-Bans, right? Which start from the other end. I call that the minimalistic approach. And I think for a large company to be successful, they got to do both. You want to start at the maximalist end and the minimalist end and meet in the middle. And because there's things you're going to figure out in both directions. If you start only in one direction, you're going to have to catch up on the other direction or buy somebody. So on the minimalist side, you're going to learn about fashion and faces and what people do with these things in the real world very soon. You're going to learn about all the use cases. Like Snap's keynote yesterday was awesome because the question and answer part was like, here's what we're learning. We're learning about how people actually want to use these things in the real world. And nobody, no matter how smart you are, can know the answer to all the ways that people want to use these things. You have to guess and make a good guess of the 10 most likely things, and then let everybody else build a million other things. And eventually you get the fart app, but that doesn't matter because you get 10 other good things that are awesome. And the fart app made a lot of money too, by the way. But so do both, meet in the middle, and eventually we're going to have a highly capable device with an ecosystem that isn't all. I never believed the glasses had to do everything. They don't always have to have displays either. They need to be the first and foremost thing that understands your context and your intentions. What are you looking at? What do you care about? How are you feeling? And then the other devices can do the rest of the work.
So listen, before we go, I want to give a shout out to my ASU graduate students. I love my Chapman students, but the graduate students are adults and they're people who have made a significant commitment to be part of this community. And so they inspire me. One of them, Jonathan Williams, has an experience over here. I don't see Jonathan. He's untimely. He's pitching his own VR experiences. So go over there and check it out if you have an opportunity. Thanks everybody for listening. Great to see you here, and we'll be back with the podcast next week.
Good, very good, thank you. Thank you.
All right, for the swag folks.